You're welcome back to AfiaTV's News Today, the discussion segment. 65 years ago, the British Union Jack was lowered while the green, white, green of Nigeria was hoisted, signaling the birth of a new nation. 65 years after, has Nigeria really come of age? Opinions are diverse about whether the country has lived up to its potential for the last 65 years. To help us put things in perspective this afternoon is Dr. Obasi Chikezie. He is a public affairs analyst. Thank you so much. Happy Independence.
Good afternoon or good day. Happy Independence to you, to Alex, and then our viewers. Happy anniversary.
So typically, what would be your assessment of Nigeria after 65 years?
It's assessment of mixed feelings, assessment of, I will tell you, little positive, but quite negative when you look at the trajectory from about 1960. Is an assessment that will leave any patriotic, educated, and well-informed, personnel in Nigeria, the tears. It's an assessment that one will not be proud of. It's an assessment of people who have all the potentials, you have all the goals and opportunities, and yet misuse them and are still misusing opportunities today. It's an assessment of people who continuously tell lies, an assessment of people who move from patriotism, to a set of people that are no longer patriotic about the nation. So it's one of a mixed feeling. If you ask me, assess where we are in 1960, it's easily to say we have moved forward. But if you ask me again to assess where we should have been, you have every reason to cry. An assessment that will make you feel that we are still under colonial pressure. An assessment that would make you feel, I have a set of young ones, leaders, educated, fellow scholars who are still carrying colonialism, colonizing their people, for the benefit of the West. An assessment of the people who do not really believe in their country, the leaders. And an assessment of people whose leadership is not seeing a progressivity in the country. So it's one that I will tell you it's really not happy, to assess Nigeria, going to, looking at where we should have been, given our potentials 65 years ago.
So, when we talk about Nigeria's journey for 65 years, a lot of people try to put it in context to say, okay, that there is a part of the journey presided over by the civilian administration, and there is also a part of the journey presided over by the military when they took charge in 1966. Well, help us put it in perspective. Do you think that military's intervention in Nigerian politics played a major role in determining the outcomes we are seeing today?
I don't want to go that route because military or no military, it's just about Nigerian leaders. Let's look at the trajectories at 1960 to 66 before the military intervention. The civilians were there. We had all, you could say, had a regional government, and the military intervened because there were, visible corruption in the system. And even if you want to deny what happened, you cannot deny the fact that there was this political thuggery operation, wait here, backstabbing by politicians, and then struggle for power. As at 1966, 64 to 66, and that led to that, to 65, that led to that coup. So one cannot really deny. However, if I really look at what has happened, when Nigeria began to gain some tractions, you understand that by 1979, a robust economy was handed over to the civilians. By early 70s, we had oil boom, which the military, worked hard to give us refineries. We did some beautiful constructions across the Federation, Festac, and so many items. So by 1979, when the fortune was handed over to the civilians, what really happened? By 81, 82, they've declared austerity measure. Nigeria was bankrupt again by 1985, by 1983, when the military incursion came in. Unfortunately, that incursion that was supposed to stem, the tide to a better prosperity was cut short by 1985. And we saw another military interventionist, Babangida, who now brought in the worst monumental corruption we have in Nigeria. So what I'm trying to point out is, you see, you could say blame military interventions. I agree with you, but you could actually see that between 1970 and 1979, military intervention gave us a lot of infrastructure we have today. Military intervention built on, resilience. They understood the will of the founding fathers of Nigeria. They tried to build a nation with what they had. They might have not been the best of administrators, but when they handed over to civilians, of course, they fitted away with the whole thing. And then another military intervention came, trying to bring back Nigerians' image. And for other ones today, they remember nostalgia, what that Buhari Ijabo regime tried to do, in bringing back patriotism back to Nigeria. And by the time another military intervention came, it was worse off. But let me fast track it that military was bad in 1999. What's happening 26 years later? You see, so you cannot, that's why I say, I don't want to begin to look at, generalize it, it's military or non-military. It cuts across the leadership of Nigeria. The elites of Nigeria are not patriotic about the country. If they see themselves in Abada, they still behave the same way as if they are in Kaki. It's the same thing. And if you look at it from that perspective of military civilian, we begin to look at our academia, the judges, our judiciary system, our executive system. Have we noticed any difference? The answer is completely no. So it's a collective, let me say, selective amnesia of what our founding fathers wanted Nigeria to be. It is not at the front burner of anybody, including those that are still in the university. What I keep telling people is that virtually all the governors today, if you remove 26 years from their age, would have landed due to 20-something years by 1999. So many of the governors by 1999 were poor people, ordinary people on the street, would have got education. 90% of them or 99% of them got their education through the university system. Now they passed through the hell, they shouted that Nigeria was not good. Today they're on the seat. What are they doing? They're worse off than the military and those that actually handed over to them. So that's what I try to say. Is I keep saying it's a form of the elites, performing neo-colonialism to the benefit of the colonial masters. We might see this, it's like a script is written that you wouldn't develop. So your educational system is polluted, the psyche of your people are polluted. So whatever you keep bringing out, including the leadership in the military, in every facet, is a set of people that seem not to have patriotism in them. Because only when you have patriotism, you can begin to say, no, this must be right because this country must move forward. So, but I see lack of patriotism across board. Somebody will tell you, I'm building an industry in Nigeria, I'm building a road, and he's a governor. And you see that the road is building to his own hometown. He's substandard. I'm going to wonder, this is the road the one wants to use till his eternity. So you see, there's this lack of patriotism that has, bedeviled us. And for me, I look at it from a neo-colonial mentality.
Neo-colonial mentality. So let's talk about the roles played by Nigeria's founding fathers and some of the legacies they left behind. Do you think that currently that the young ones are lacking in this, whatever lessons that are left behind by the likes of Nnamdi Azikiwe, Obafemi Awolowo, Tafawa Balewa? Do you think that there is really a death of this level of leadership that we had before?
Yeah, the difference between those leaders and what we have today is that those leaders, they were quick to move their understanding. Right? They were quick to say, we are not going to be a slave, we want to stand on our own. The likes of Zik, the likes of Tafawa Balewa, Awolowo, and so on. They were interested in building a nation. And that was why you saw the early regional governments all grew at different paces, but they actually showed substantial growth using indigenous products. The cocoa actually helped to establish Cocoa House, in the Southwest, established, the first media house in the Southwest. We saw that in the Southeast here, or in the East here, then in the West, in the East here, we saw the University of Nigeria coming on board. We saw a lot of things. In the North, the same went on. So those ones were seen to be leaders who believe they want to transform the country. There was this picture I saw one day, And he showed Tafawa Balewa, as a prime minister who was on leave, went back to his village and took up his role. So he believed in the country. Now, what do we have? Unfortunately, the military incursion came with, between 1970s and 79, somewhat, there was a shift, there was a mental shift to believing that, and I believe again, global powers, had a lot of influence. America at that time was touted as the best country, and then we quickly dumped what we had at British parliamentary rule, and then we quickly began to consume foreign products. We had the money, and we began to drop whatever we had. Our leaders began to consume foreign products, clothing, putting on suits like, they don't understand the implication. And then what we saw by 1983 was a country that could no longer feed itself. Remember the Operation Feed the Nation, which was launched, I think, late 70s or something like that. We saw a country that couldn't feed itself, a country that was more interested in consuming foreign products. So what we did effectively was to transfer our labor to another country. We outsourced our labors, and we were only interested in getting oil. By 81, 82, 83, oil dried up, and then we couldn't, struggle. By 1980s, mid-80s, Babangida accepted what I think is the evil pill. He took the banana, swallowed it, and went up to IMF. Of course, I don't know how many countries that IMF ever helped, that ever came out of that debt. I can't remember how many countries. And that was the first, what I would say, punch he threw against Nigerians, and they value the currency like, what nobody could ever envisage. And then we saw the threat, we saw labor crisis, our allied academics went off, went away. We saw the first round of Japa in mass out of Nigeria. And those guys, when they left, they collapsed. Our industries left, the people could no longer even feed themselves well, and the country went down in ruins, And when Abacha came, I must give it to him. Abacha was one person that looked patriotic, but again, you see, the idea of rent, the idea of corruption was still there. We saw an Abacha who could collect 22 naira, from CBN unfetteredly, went to the parallel market, the Sun, went to the parallel market and sold it at an exorbitant price, I think about 88 naira or thereabouts at that time. So, and then took the worst was, they took the money, stashed abroad. Again, telling you, they feel that place is a safe haven. They feel that place, that's what I was thinking about, colonial mentality. You see a man who is living in Enugu, who is a governor of Enugu or Anambra or any other state, who knows that his corpse will return back to Enugu, will suddenly decide not to do the right thing, but take the money abroad. What do you do? I saw the governor of Anambra State, after governing Anambra. We saw him, living somewhere in America with his dog. I said, this guy is crazy. So it simply means all the while you were in Anambra State government, you didn't find it good to make the place pleasure. That's why I talk about colonial mentality. So what you now see is that the elites are somewhat encouraged to believe that this place can never work. And as such, we need to take away our money to a place that's safe. When we finish, getting the money here, we'll take it there. This is a reverse of what the colonial masters did. When Europe was wrong, Europe was bad, they fought a lot of war, after Westphalian Treaty of 1648, they agreed they were going to, have nations built on economic prosperity. And then they began to scramble, go to other countries to see how they could, amass wealth. When they came to Africa, they understood clearly. Africa has all it takes, the mineral resources, the beautiful weather. They knew they could actually kill us. Yet what did they do? They took that which we have, went back to their poorly resourced country, without good weather, without good land mass, and developed it. So those guys understood they met a continent that was far better than theirs. Yet they did not stay here. They did not say, let's take away these guys and remain. They took it back and developed theirs. But what do we have today? Modern day slavery, where our leaders come here, extract what we have here, and still went back to the white man. And that's why I call colonial mentality. So that mentality of having another place. You say a politician, his children and wife is living in London. You come here, you say you are trying to develop a system. What are you developing when you cannot even test what you want to develop? You say you want to run a good educational system. Your children are still, within primary and secondary education, but they're schooling in London. How does that look like? It doesn't sound. And you know clearly, those children, when they finish, they'll come back here, extract what is here, go back. I mean, that's what I talk about. Colonial mentality, ravaging us. And if you go through our university educational sector, you see, just simple, people, ask them, where do you want to spend after your education? In Nigeria, Africa, in North Africa, or Europe? They will simply curse you for asking them to stay back in their country. And I mean, until you begin to build that this is a nation, if you have it in your own mentality, you cannot sit down to struggle and solve the nation's problem. And as such, if you find such a person finds himself in power, the first thing he will do is to steal money, buy a one useless building, 2-bedroom apartment or thereabouts somewhere in US or UK, and then believe that one day he was going to Japan and meet his family there.
All right.
So that's the problem we have. Now, before we begin to talk about what other things, the issue is that we have not gotten a proper mental orientation.
All right. That would be a good place to leave it. I have to thank you so much, Dr. Obasi Chikezie. We are totally out of time. Lots of things to say, but of course, Nigeria is 6-5. No going back on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Happy independence.
And you too.
Thank you for staying with us on the news today. Do follow us on all social media platforms at AfiaTV Official. My name is Alex Obodo. Good afternoon.